Good morning. It's Thursday, February 3rd, 10:53 a.m. This is the second and final half of Senate Natural Resources and Energy's morning meeting. We're just wrapping up on Senate Bill 148, an act relating to environmental justice in Vermont. Taking testimony, wanted to double back while our witnesses are still with us and see if there are any committee questions. And my big question to the committee in general on this is, like every other bill, is what questions does the committee have and from whom would you like to hear, so that we can ensure that we schedule in the next week anyone in that you would that you believe would be helpful to you to feel like you are well informed on the bill at hand. Any requests out there? All right. Well, if you don't have any now and you think of something, please let me know. The schedule's being finalized and we can always add people, but all right. So thank you, Ms. Mahaly. Thank you, Ms. Byrne. Sorry to keep you hanging over a committee break. We're finished with S-148 for the morning. Then thanks.
Thank you so much, senators. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and so you may have already done it, but just as a reminder for all our sakes, if you can send the red line and the guidance document, that will be helpful. And we'll.
Yeah, I will. And you had said you'll send the maps to your committee members. Yes,
thanks for that reminder. I have those. So
great. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good rest of the morning.
Bye-bye. If you send me the maps, I'll send them out to everybody.
Jude, do you have copies of those maps on the website? I think you do from an
Oh, I do? Okay, I'll go look for them. Yep.
I think when Ms. Mahaly was in on a previous visit, she shared her maps. If you don't find them easily enough, just let me know and I will pull them up, send them to you for posting and for distribution to the committee. Great. So we have Ms. Chakowski is actually they're in the middle of markup and voting out a bill, and so I was hopeful that we are actually going to have her joining us at this point, which seems not to be the case today. We're not going to be able to walk through with council the edits we just heard, but we will be able to follow up with A&R tomorrow. And, the pendulum's swinging back and forth with these edits, but the swings are getting shorter and there's going to be fewer things to settle out. With that, I just wanted to talk about the hearing. So the press release just got finalized. Mr. Ferrant will be sending it to the press as soon as we adjourn. I'll actually make sure it gets distributed to all legislators, because the interest is broader than just House or Senate and broader than just our committee.
Also will be posted, the press release will be posted on our committee information page.
Okay.
Which I will do shortly.
Okay, great. And so,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Are we taking a hearing on one bill or several bills?
3. So we have.
I would caution the committee of trying to get 6 different lists of witnesses to speak no more than 40 minutes total on 3 different subjects.
So
leaving only 20 minutes. It's tough enough to do back and forth on one issue without having people sit around. I've never, would be tough enough in person, and on Zoom, I'm concerned.
Okay. Well, so there is in the press release that you'll see, so one thing is, for anyone who's interested, there's a sign up form. You have to sign up. in order to participate. And the sign-up form is available now, so people don't have to wait till the day of or something like that. It asks for name, the normal things that we ask for in terms of like where's someone from. I think actually the phone number is part of security for making sure we're getting the right person actually logging in. And it asks what bills you want to speak on and for or against. So we're just going to do a basic sort, and people will have 2 minutes. They can focus entirely on one bill. They can talk about all three. I think we're getting a lot of email that treats all three as a group. So 3 hearings would be too much. And it's not ideal, but I think people can weigh in and focus in 2 minutes. You can say quite a lot. And in terms of just letting us have a sense of the range of thinking out there, I think it's imperfect, but that was the solution.
What will there be an automatic discontinuance at the end of the second minute, or will we allow people to finish their sentences no longer, no matter how long they are, or are we going to hold it to 2 minutes with a warning that you have so much time left, and when you get to that time, we're going to shut them off and go to the next one? And who's going to do that?
We're actually going to have a little IT training session, so we'll know exactly how this works. But I'm told that there's a visible countdown clock, so someone knows exactly how much time they have. I don't know if it's like an absolute hard stop, like when the clock hits 0, it just stops that witness, or how it works. But we will have
What will your policy as the chair be?
Well,
what will your decision be on that? That's not
preference
something we're going to delegate to someone else, is it?
No, we'll have, actually, I think the clerk will be running the helping people in and out kind of thing. So my personal take on it, and I'm happy to discuss this with you all, is that if someone's in the middle of a sentence, we let them finish that sentence, but you can't go on, because as we go on, it cuts other people, it prevents other people from having time at the other end. And
those of us that can utter a sentence that takes 3.5 minutes, how will we deal with that one?
When I hear your second semicolon go by, that's when we stop. I don't know exactly. It'll be a judgment call.
Made by whom?
I guess if I'm conducting the meeting, so I'll have to, if someone's going on too long, I'll have to, this has happened before in previous meetings. I say, please conclude your remarks, etc., that kind of thing. Some people get it and they stop pretty shortly. Sometimes you have to say it more than once. I'm pretty confident we'll manage it fine.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, in a Zoom meeting, you have an advantage. You can cut the person off.
Yes, I would.
It's mean and it looks imperious, but if the person is talking too long, is stealing other people's time. It's not that we're bullying him. He's bullying all the other witnesses. So
it's traditional to get someone with a black hood over their head to cut things off. But
we are live, just so you know.
Yeah. So
I just hope we have that answered and we don't say at the end, my goodness, how did that happen? Okay.
Well, thanks for raising it. I've been thinking about it quite a bit already, and I'll keep thinking about it. The other thing is, as I mentioned, because we actually use a different version sort of Zoom to do it, we're going to have a brief training session with IT so we know how to conduct the meeting, and that'll be certainly something I'll want to check in on. So thanks for making sure we get the rules of the road clear and clearly articulated so no one is unpleasantly surprised on hearing day.
So
And Mike
My-
said that the press release now is
On the General Assembly page as a highlight. So
Okay,
that's one place it's up already.
I-
The General
okay.
Assembly, yep. Webpage.
so
yeah, Senator Westman.
in somewhat in the vein to understand what we're doing, as Senator McDonald was. So what do I tell people about the other bills that are in committee? I've had a fair number of people from the same groups that are supporting this, are interested in the land posting bill we had.
Right. So I would encourage them for now to write to us. You know, we have a lot of things to get done. And so I stuck to our more narrow fish and wildlife bills rather than the posting piece of things. But I know there's a certain amount of crosstalk between shared interests amongst groups. So
A lot of the same people that don't like people hunting with dogs want to post their land to people, and so there's some crossover there.
okay, yeah, certainly. So for now, I'd say that's not part of this hearing, and it was already somewhat ambitious to treat the 3 hunting related bills in a group. Okay, so we'll have again, everyone will get that press release directly. It's on the legislative website's homepage, as Jude just said, as a featured in the announcement section of that homepage, and people can sign up. And we'll have our training, we'll sort it out, and we'll do the best we can, and I think it'll be fine in the end. Next week, we're going to be alternating. So we start the week with an update on ARPA funding as it relates to weatherization. And then in terms of in-depth committee work, we alternate between the Act 250 bill and the environmental justice bill, with the goal of voting them out by the beginning of the week after. So, or maybe by the end of next. But that pushes the schedule as far as Wednesday, February 16th, at which point we'll be full court press on weatherization. And I'm figuring that we actually don't have that many pieces to put together into the bill at this point. I've asked Senator Westman to meet with Chair Kitchell and myself just to start paving the way for how we're handling funding, which is, I think the governor's proposed governor's recommend has $80 million allocated over 4 years, which is approximately the same level of boost that we just got this past year or current year. And some of my questions are, how do we, since we actually budget year by year, what do we do to ensure that we don't see that money disappear, and that we keep it steady funding for the long haul? It buys us a period of time to look at follow-on funding for FY27 and beyond. But that's a pretty good runway compared to what we usually have for funding. And that's it. I mean, we have, we will, during next week, though, while we're working on those bills, we'll be touching base on the weatherization bill, and then we're having the hearing on the fish and wildlife bills. So we have various irons in the fire, and I think at this point, we have 2 bills that are approaching the phase for pounding out and voting out, and by the time that's done, the weatherization and fish and wildlife bills will be hot enough to work on. So,
Comes Ellen.
pardon me,
Here comes Ellen.
here comes Ellen, okay.
Don't get too excited. I can't stay.
Okay, well, so we just, we took testimony, as you know, from Ms. Mahaly and Ms. Byrne this morning. They did a red line, and they're sending it to us. So I'm going to make sure a copy gets to you as well. A&R is going to be responding to that red line and other things tomorrow when they're in, tomorrow morning. And then next week, I think, as I was saying, we're really getting to the editing phase. And so we'll start working more closely with you to make those decisions in committee and aim to have a bill out roughly within a week from Tuesday, no more than a week from that's Tuesday would be the goal. And meanwhile, we also have the Act 250 bill going on. And so I will continue to work with you on that to prepare things. We have Mr. Fidel coming in tomorrow who couldn't join us earlier in the week to talk about strengthening forestry provision. And I do want to pause and ask the committee for its sense of, we're going to have some decisions to make on our Act 250 work. I would say the major fork in the road is Senator McCormick has a construct around umbrella permitting or master permits. I had worked to put together the proposal that's in 234 that talks about adding another designation, a smart growth designation. My sense, based on our testimony to date, honestly, is that to a system that's already somewhat complex and people have concerns about being too complex already, namely the 5 different types of designation, we would be adding a 6th, and it sort of overlays with it. So there's complexity. And also my sense is that the municipalities that are positioned to take advantage of this are not feeling like it's enough of it's not a very attractive option to them. Too much additional work on top of what they're already doing for the gains that they perceive to be made. That's not my final conclusion, but that's the gist of, that's how I'm reading the room when we've had VLCT and others in. Haven't had an enthusiastic municipality on that. So I'm looking at ways to find another way to get there. Again, smartly planned housing, including affordable housing, focusing on developed areas and strengthening the forestry provisions. Senator McCormick, do you have a sense of, I'm sort of putting up the proposal I've offered on the chopping block of committee opinion. I don't know if it's something we want to continue to work on, a construct that doesn't seem to have many takers. I don't know if you have a sense of if there are takers for the master permit strategy either at this point.
We haven't tried it. And I think that it works with industrial parks.
Right.
And I don't see why it wouldn't work with downtown as well. And as also, I think it's important that we maintain the integrity of Act 250. We start chipping away at it and saying, well, Act 250, this is Act 250 jurisdiction, but we're going to take that jurisdiction away, put it someplace else. We start to diminish it, and I want to keep it strong. I think, frankly, there are people whose objection, who would object as long as they're being held accountable for the environmental impacts of their plans. They're going to feel aggrieved, and I don't think we can make them happy. I think what we do need to do is to make sure that we're doing it as quickly and efficiently and cheaply as possible. And I'm willing to do that. And I understand time is money. Property is a constitutional right, and that includes the use of property. And we should not be inconveniencing that use any more than necessary. But we have decided years ago, Vermont decided that these environmental concerns are a binding, a compelling social interest, that there is a state interest in protecting them. And I think that the umbrella permit will in fact expedite the process without moving the process to a whole other entity. So I'm asking the committee to incorporate that plan into the bill.
Okay.
And
I think
I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, because I know you've had a different idea all along. And I think you and I have dealt with that as friends and as colleagues, and I very much appreciate your willingness to let me make my pitch.
absolutely. I had read that forward from Douglas Costel in the Act 250 handbook the other day, and I'll read just the last paragraph of it, which is part of what weighs on me a little bit as we talk about alternate pathways and stuff. It includes the paragraph that says, the scope of issues which fall within Act 250 jurisdiction is broad. Act 250 goes beyond just looking at technical issues. It also looks at such difficult to define areas as aesthetics and how well a project conforms to a local or regional plan. All projects alter the environment in some way. Act 250 is forced to decide just how much is too much. And I think some of the other forums aren't designed to answer that last question, how much is too much? So I think, in terms of what would be helpful to me in terms of assessing the likelihood of success of the master permit plan would be to hear from some of the folks that weighed in on the 234 construct,
Yeah.
and also the administration. If we don't, for my part, I'm saying if I don't see any takers for what I'm putting on the table, then I'm happy to say, well, it was an idea designed to prompt a conversation and time for me to move on. And so let's test the waters on the master permit more clearly, so we get a read from folks outside the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. The other thing I've thought about, and so let me float this out as a concept, is one of the things driving this conversation, for better or worse, is the time limited nature of ARPA funding. Must be obligated by 2024, must be expended by 2026. No one on planet Earth can tell us whether or not the current law would actually be a problem in terms of meeting those deadlines, but there is concern. So another way to deal with this is to look at, if we come up with another provision, another pathway, another way of managing these projects, can we do it within a limited time frame? So, the plain way of saying it is you would build in provisions with a sunset, and they would coincide to the time frame of the ARPA funding. If that is the driver for people's concerns, then we could address that concern by having language that wraps around the period of ARPA funding. And then it would sunset. You'd provide time at the end to review whether or not the sunset was merited. And you could have reporting in that final year and say whether or not there have been problems, unforeseen problems, or actually it turned out to be particularly successful. In a way, it's like running an experiment and monitoring the results and then deciding how to respond at the end of the pilot. So I don't know if people think of that as a reasonable way of proceeding, or where the committee is on that. But I didn't want to, I thought I should float it out so people could digest it some. We don't need to be making a decision yet, but I want people thinking aloud together to help figure a better way to do this stuff. Okay, so Mr. Chakowski, I know you need to go back to your voting bills out today, right, on the other side? Or facilitating voting bills out on the other side. I don't know if you, I'm trying to remember, let me look at the schedule. We were asking you to come in to help us work more on 234, but that's actually tomorrow. You had a presentation that we couldn't get through in its entirety last time you were here. So there's time scheduled for you tomorrow morning to finish, and also for committee members to ask questions about the first half, because we really did run up against a hard stop. And I think other than that, so that's 234 and that's 148, and that's what's on the table at the moment.
Did you want me to talk? Am I planning something about priority housing projects also? That's on your agenda.
Oh yes, thank you for that reminder. So tomorrow, after we do the finishing your presentation, can you give us a tutorial on priority housing projects? Because that seems to be the thing of greatest interest to folks who are interested in addressing the housing shortage we have. And I've looked at it some with you, and I think it's more complicated than first meets the eye.
Sure, I can start that conversation, but you might actually want to hear from the NRB because it is complicated.
Okay. So would you be able to do that tomorrow after you finished your other presentation? Okay, sure. And I'll, so Jude, let's you and I reach out to NRB and ask, schedule them in as well. Okay, so thank you for that. Is there any other committee discussion, concerns, thoughts on 148, 234, weatherization, the hearing? We've got 4 pots on the stove now. Senator McDonald.
We've had mixed success with Act 250 bills in the last couple sessions. We've combined efforts to speed up things we thought were important and to include environmental stuff that we thought was important. And we've had a couple of those bills vetoed. Are we going to put, if we're going to deal with Act 250 matters, are we going to put them in separate bills? Or are we going to put the package in there that we think is a responsible, balanced package?
Responsible, balanced package. And actually, thank you for asking. You know, so we're talking about a pathway, right, for accelerated housing development, particularly while we have money around to do it. Same time, we've the environmental protections related to forestry have languished for years, at least 8 that I can count, bills that haven't made it all the way through. So those are traveling together. I'm working with Senator Sirotkin to make sure that any provisions related to municipal planning or Act 250 that facilitate that development that everyone is saying they would like to see travel in our bill, because that's the only way I think we achieve some balance in our bill. It's to and so I think their bill will focus more on the money and the kinds of incentives and stuff like that, but not the planning changes that we would need to make in order to complement what economic development will move out. Does that answer your question?
I don't know. We had a bill the last bill we had that tried to do balance, did some things for mechanical trails and powered by motor vehicles and sorts, and it had also wildlife corridors, trails in it, and the bill got vetoed. And are we going to reattach the wildlife part that got left behind in our Act 250 bill that we have before us?
So we do have forest blocks and wildlife corridors in the bill, and the road rule. They are all in the current bill that's dealing with housing, planning laws as they pertain to housing in particular.
Good to hear
Right,
that.
and so the language that's in S234 right now on criterion 8C is the language that was vetoed.
Good to hear that. Thank you.
And so Senator Westman and I have been meeting, having an extra meeting each week with ANR and NRB to try to keep getting a clear read, but this is going to be, we're going to have to be doing this in committee, in public, in the coming week, because there's no interest in being surprised by a veto later on. If there's something untenable, I'd like to know about it ASAP. Or if we're close, then what are the obstacles to coming to a yes? So that's the goal. And when next week, when we have ANR and NRB in, that's exactly the kind of friendly but pointed question we need to get to. Are we in agreement? Can the administration support it? Are we ready to move forward? If there's anything that's a hindrance, what is it specifically? And let's work on that language and see if we can iron it out. Okay. All right. So we are finishing a little early today. And I know everyone is twitchy enough that everyone is busy already. So we'll see you on the floor at 1. And we'll be back.
I believe we're on the floor. Are we still on the floor at 12:15?
Oh yeah, for
Yes,
the
okay.
caucus
Yeah.
for the whole. Right?
Thank you.
Regular floor at 1. And we're back in here tomorrow, 8:30. We have Agency of Natural Resources in to talk to us in response to the red line and other thoughts they have on 148. Same deal. We need to get to the point where we're starting to say, is this bill supported by administration? If not, why not? Where are there things that are hindrance to coming to an agreement? And we'll be doing that for the next 8 days in here. And at the end of that, I hope we have 2 bills ready to vote out. So thank you everyone for your help, and I'll see you in caucus at 12.